to me. So, are you just fine with saying that, like, God's thoughts that, like, serve the purpose of propositions are just, like, analogical? Like, you're predicating analogical in the fact that you're calling them thoughts? Because, like, every thought we're acquainted with has aboutness, but, like, these thoughts don't have aboutness or whatever?
Well, I mean, God, like, again, in this view, really what we're talking about are, like, exemplars or prototype ideas, right? So in God's mind. Now, yeah, the resemblance. Now, it's not like there's no diversity within God, real diversity within God, right? So for us, two thoughts would be too distinct from each other. You know, in God, obviously, there can't be such a distinction, but because of his simplicity. But then, second, I mean, another respect in which they're analogical is that God's thought is like a higher on the chain of being than the thing it's about. So, like, Milith is contained within God's conception of Milith in a way that makes God's conception of Milith like the right sort of thing from which a Milith can proceed as like a faint, pale imitation, you know? Like, what makes you Milith is the resemblance that you have to God's conception of the perfect Milith. Now, obviously that's very different from creaturely thoughts, right? Where creaturely thoughts are even more impotent than creaturely entities that have a, like, actuality. Because, like, my thought of Milith, like, doesn't have the generative power to bring about a Milith, you know? It's actually, in fact, like, way less cool than a full real Milith. It doesn't even accurately, fully convey Milithness. So creaturely thoughts are, like, far, far weaker expressions of being than divine thoughts. But, like, the divine thoughts, like, are said to, like, eminently contain the creatures they're about. So, like, we just try to understand or grasp or apprehend, like, some aspects of creatures. Meanwhile, like, God's Milith thought is more Milith than Milith.
Do you... this actually last thing, and then I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't mind. I mean, other people may.
No, I know. I just want to let other people talk in the room. Do you think there's any univocal predication about God?
Well, it depends on what you mean, because in a technical sense, no, right? Which is what Aquinas is saying. But what he really means by that is just God is in a different genus, you know, than anything else. And so, like, the sense in which God is said to exist is different than the sense in which creatures are said to exist. And so, therefore, basically anything that's predicated of God has to be analogical, because anytime you're making a predication across genuses, there's going to be, you can never do so univocally.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, no problem.
So something that I'm a little bit confused about with propositions is there's, like, all these mysteries about it, but when I just think about it intuitively, it seems not mysterious to say, hey, like, there's a hypothetical state of the world that, like, might be the way the world is or might not be the way the world is. And then, like, I mean, what is that ontological state of that hypothetical state of the world? I mean, I don't know. It's like, I don't know, a description. It's just like a list of ways the world. It's just like literally just a description of a world state. I don't know. That feels like not mysterious to me. So what am I missing?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just based off of this idea that's like, if we ever assert, you know, what is it that your thought's conveying that my thought's also conveying, this proposition? And then we ask, oh yeah, we're both conveying the same proposition. And then it's like, okay, what is that? And then basically whenever you try to tell me which thing in reality it is, that's when basically people can start debating, right? So if you start talking about a world state, right? Well, if my proposition is true and actually refers to a world state of the actual world, great, that's really easy, right? Because we all believe in those already. But then when my proposition represents a world state that's not actual, right? So it's merely possible, right? In this case, then we're like, okay, what in the heck is a possible world state? Like, where is that? Well, can I go? Will I find it in the moon? Like at the Louvre? Where do I find it? And then people start giving different answers to that question. That's where the controversy is going to arise. Is, what is it? Is it just a thing that exists outside of space and time? So it's an abstract entity, Is that just all possible worlds? Is that what we're conveying? And so these are aspects of possible worlds, and these are abstract, ethereal possible worlds. Or you could go real crazy like David Lewis and be like, no, like, possible worlds are just like the actual world, except actual is just like around here, but they're just as concrete and real as this.
Yeah.
Just for those people that happen to reside there, we just don't happen to reside there. So you can go crazy like that. Then you can start telling other stories where you're like, no, guys, you're going nuts because you're way too committed to this, like, if we say something like there exists P, then there has to be some concrete entity P out in the world that we're committed to actually existing. But really, when we're saying here's a possible world, really what we're doing is actually this like parenthetical statement that's like, here's an aspect of actual things, Or it's just like an artifact of our language, or it's a fiction that we're playing with. It's a useful fiction. So you see all those different answers to that question that people can give, and that's where the mystery is, or the debate comes about.
Yeah. I mean, why, if I say that there's a description, a hypothetical description, do I need to be ontologically committed to anything? It seems like I could just say, like, listen, what I gave is a list of hypothetical properties. There's a dog, and he's got white fur, and then if you are a thing, that has, those success.
No, but then there comes the question. So you're saying what makes what you're saying true? That there are these hypothetical properties, and these facts are true about those hypothetical properties. And I'm asking, well, what the heck is a hypothetical property?
It's just like a verbal description of a state of affairs, or I just feel like descriptions of things are not too mysterious. Like I can describe, hey,
well, no, but here's the problem: is just when you're asked to basically go beyond just saying the thing that we're inquiring about, like just using the term that refers to it, and then you're like, yeah, but what is the thing in reality that you're referring to, that you're like informing us about, that makes what you're saying true? That's where the controversy arises. So there's something informative about what you're telling us, right? There's something about the world that really is true of the world that I didn't know before, that I'm learning when you bring this to my attention. And the question is, what aspect of reality is that? Because with like tables and chairs and particle colliders and stuff like that, it's more straightforward. You can go bump into them, right?
Yeah.
But then when you start talking about things that are like more abstract and immaterial, there starts to be more controversy where you're like, is it just that they're exactly the same as like physical things, except they just don't have the properties that let you bump into them? Or is there some sense in which they're like, they supervene on the physical, or like are fully grounded in the physical in a way where they're sort of just like really entirely derivative, where they're sort of like different ways of speaking that help you convey aspects of physical things? Or is it, no, what you're saying, like, this is purely a mental construct that we're sort of imposing on reality, but isn't telling us anything about the world, over and above just this is a useful way to think about the world to help focus attention or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I have this intuition that this is just my intuition of how it works. You got the world and how it is, and then you can label the ways the world is, and then you can ask, hey, does our universe have this, and this label that I've already invented? And then just find out if that's true.
Yeah, but there's a thing about reality that makes it fitting or not fitting to say things like, if Ethan had stayed home, he would have been hungry. Right? So there's something about the world that makes that true, right? But it's not the actual physical, events that unfolded. Because what did in fact happen when Ethan went off to the restaurant and ate McDonald's and was full, that's not sufficient to tell you what would have happened had Ethan stayed home, right? So then when I ask, what is it that makes that counterfactual claim true? Like, what is the further fact about reality that's being conveyed to me? Because it can't be about what actually happened, right? So then a thought you could have is, oh, well, there's possible worlds, and those possible worlds, it's facts about those that I'm conveying. So there's certain possible worlds that are similar to the actual world, but they only differ in this one respect that Ethan stayed home. And the ones that are most similar, when Ethan stays home, but they're very similar, he's hungry. And that's what I'm conveying. Or another approach would just be like, no, like, there are certain physical laws and those physical laws tell us, that if this contingent event had instead gone this other way, and if we had played the tape forward, then this definitely would have happened, or almost certainly would have happened, or what have you, right? And so then, but anyways, so people are asking to provide stories about what makes this thing you're saying true.
Yeah. Well, I feel like what makes the thing true is just how the world is.
Yeah, but that's not helpful.
But then, like, what is it that is like what is the ontological status of a description of how the world is? It's like, I don't know. Like, we have word meanings, and word meanings convey states of the world. So I don't know. It's just like.
Okay, but so again, that's not helpful, because so there's the way the world is. Yes, that is true, but it's not informative, right? Because the question that's being posed is like, what aspect of the way the world is, right? What is the feature, what is the thing that's constitutive of the way the world is that this is picking out, right? So like if I told you like, this glass is 105 degrees Fahrenheit, and then I ask you, oh, what makes that true? If you told me the way the world is, that wouldn't be helpful, right? But if you told me, oh, there's this much kinetic energy and these particles are moving this fast, okay, that's moving forward in terms of what that temperature is conveying to me about how the world is, fundamentally, right? So if you see the difference between those answers to that same question, what is being conveyed about the way the world is when I say this mug is 105 degrees Fahrenheit? If you can see that that's just because that's the way the world is. That's not helpful. But telling me, oh, it's about kinetic motion, okay, that's more helpful.
I just feel like there's lots of metaphysical baggage here, and we can get a lot off the ground by just saying there's a way the world is. There's a way that our language can be used to describe the ways the world is. There's ways that our thoughts can express content about how the world is, and then you don't need stuff over and above the world is and our representations about the world is. And I feel like there's a lot of
but there's a
not
question.
necessarily epicycles.
But that's not. So nothing you've said. None of those things, everybody already agrees that those things are real and that they're useful and that most people can bypass asking about the metaphysical questions, right? And just get around in the world perfectly fine. Like, you don't need to be an expert on what causation is in order to use causal reasoning in your day-to-day life, in a way that's sufficient for most everyday tasks that you have. But, that doesn't mean that it's not interesting to pose the question, like when we say X causes Y, what is it that we're communicating about the relationship between X and Y? Right? So, just the fact that something's like functionally adequate for most everyday purposes doesn't tell you that there's not something interesting that can be learned by asking about the underpinnings of it.
No, I agree with that.
And then if a person is coming to you and saying, when you're making these claims about propositions or counterfactuals or mathematical objects or whatever, there is something interesting and informative that we can learn by debating about what that's communicating about the nature of reality.
I mean, it might be helpful to be concrete about this and just say, okay, let's just take like a given proposition. Like Sam lives in New York State. Okay, there's a proposition. Okay, well, it could be true, it could be false. Like I could be, actually in the Bahamas right now. I could be lying to you all. It could be, true. No, it happens to be true that I do live in New York State right now. And now, what is the status of that proposition that I live? I mean, there's a sense in which, there's a guy, Sam, and he's in New York State. That's like one reality. And there's another reality, which is like our language is able to express like representations of where things are. And like, it feels like you have to either ask about the map or the territory. And if you're asking about some third thing, you're like lost in the sauce.
Oh, well, no, but so there's the problem, which is, so there's what's being represented, right? Which is the world. There's the way you're representing it, which is the mental representation that exists in your head, right? Then there's some content of that mental representation that is neither the way the world is, nor the way you're representing it as being, right? And that can be shared by people like you and me. And then we can ask that shared content that's neither the exact representation in your head nor the exact representation in mine. What is that thing? Where is that thing? Etc.
So why do you think that there's the content that's like separate from how the world is or how I'm representing it? Like what motivates that?
Well, so one thing is you and me are both representing the world as containing Sam, right?
Yeah.
So we both have those two representations. So there's something common between those two representations that isn't identical to either of them, because my thought and your thought are not the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we ask, what is it that is the same about them, right? So we can say, oh, I know there's a meaning that they both have, a sense that they both have, right? But then that's going to raise a further question. What is that thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. You can give answers of that don't involve saying there's some platonic realm, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the difficulties in formulating those answers are part of the reason why people are tempted to say there's some platonic realm.
Yeah. I see. I mean, I don't think your concept of me and my concept of me are the same concept. I also don't think that my concept of cat and your concept of cat are the same concept.
But there's something shared between us, right?
Yeah, they are very similar. They are very, very similar concepts.
Similar in what respect?
That they're describing mostly the same. They're mostly picking out the same things in the world.
Well, no, but it's not that they're picking out the same thing, because we could both have unicorn concepts that pick out nothing, that it can be very similar, but it's not in what they pick out that actually exists, right?
Well, I mean,
it's in what they're sort of saying about the world, whether or not the world is that way or not, and what it is that they're trying to do, right? So there's two aspects there.
Well, with the unicorn thing, if there was a unicorn that got instantiated, we both agreed that it got instantiated. So,
yeah, but there's nothing in reality that we're both picking out. There's something that's common. Like it's true that our thoughts are common to each other. I mean, there's something common between our thoughts, whether unicorns exist or not. So therefore, because the unicorns aren't out there in the world, the thing in virtue of which our two thoughts are similar can't depend on what's in the world.
Yeah, it's the method of trying to pick things in the world that I'm saying is the
right. Exactly. So basically there's something that we're attributing to the world, and there's something that we're basically success conditions that we have for whether we've succeeded or not succeeded by attributing that to the world. Right. So basically there's a meaning, what it is that's being said about the world, and there's the success conditions or the truth conditions for that attribution of something to the world. Okay, great. So those are propositions. Now, what is it that basically constitutes those propositions? Because it's not the things out in the world, and it's not our thoughts. So it has to be something that's common to both thoughts.
I mean, I guess what I would say what makes our cat concept the same is that, like, we are the algorithm that you generate what the success condition would be is like very, very similar, such that like we would agree 99.9999% of the time about what, like, we agree that lamps aren't cats, we agree submarines aren't cats, we agree, and then there's going to be some gray area where, like,
okay, but so now you've given an answer.
If I show you a seven-legged feline, or if I show you
I get it.
cat that's an alien, you like we might agree about how cat it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the thing there is, now you're giving an account to try to solve this problem, but it's going to raise further complications. So, for instance, there's a dispositionalism that you've just invoked. So, could it be that I have a thought that invokes a cat concept, even though I'm disposed to misapply my cat concept or my true concept, right? So, like, for instance, like, it could turn out that I just suck at math, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm disposed to do is say that 2 plus 200 equals 5 million, right?
Yeah.
Now, one thing to say is, you suck at math, so you just got the wrong answer. But then if you're telling me that what I mean and what the success conditions are is just determined by the algorithm that I myself use to grade myself, then if I'm a stubborn guy who won't correct my answer no matter what, that doesn't seem right. Or, like, it seems like a lot of my concepts, like my addition concept, are infinite, you know? But, like, my brain is finite. And so, like, if I actually try to compute, you know, this, like, 10 to the 9 quadrillion precision decimal, it turns out, no, it's not that I would give the correct answer, it's that my head would explode. And so then you start seeing there's a problem there if the thing that I'm saying, like, basically if I'm grounding the meaning and the success conditions, if I'm grounding those entirely in the intrinsic properties of my mental states and the dispositions that I have towards evaluating things, there's a problem, which is that doesn't seem fully adequate.
So, like, it seems like it's mostly adequate, and that seems like maybe we can just say that the sort of things that you're bringing up are like details to be worked out later, rather than fatal to the theory.
No, but they seem like fundamental problems, because the thing you were trying to tell me was true with this theory was that what made it true, that plus meant plus, you know, that I was correct under the conditions I was correct, was just positions to evaluate myself. And it seems like that's just wrong, like is what these examples are showing.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is it's not my evaluation of myself. It's like there are certain rules that exist in my mind that I use to evaluate whether a thing is that thing, and you do or do not have the same rules as me. So I have some rules for if something's a cat or not. It's got to have fur and, I know, a list like 1,000 different properties, and then you have a very, very similar list. And so, like just it's not dying.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that
It's the rules
it's
themselves that
it's raising the problem at another level, which is in order for that solution to work, you'd have to have something that wasn't a
Never
rule
had one lesson.
that uniquely determined the rule that governed your usage, right? So, like, if I'm coming to you and you're saying, so, like, the famous example here is Kripkenstein's example, plus versus quas, right? So, one version of addition is our version of addition. Then there's another version that's exactly the same, except that 40 plus 80 bajillion actually equals 3, rather than 80 bajillion 40. Okay, and the question becomes...
Nonsense is good to people.
And the question becomes, what makes it the case that my concept of addition picks out plus rather than quas, right? And you can say, well, it's that the rule addition is in my head, not the rule quas,
Yeah.
right? But that's circular.
Wait, why is that circular? Isn't there just a fact with rules in your head, independent?
No, because rules aren't... So if you think your head is made of particles, particles aren't rules.
Well, I think that rules could be instantiated. Like, I mean, I don't
Well, no,
know.
but we can go show you, and that's the problem with this whole dispositionalism, right? Is that no brain is going to actually encode those rules, because it's always going to only going to encode any idealized concept to a finite precision, and it's going to have in the process lots of disposition to do error. So there's the problem of the finitude. Then there's the problem.
Precision may be all what you need.
No, it's not, because the point is that in order for it to be addition, rather than all the possible quas concepts that we could come up with, it would need to settle every case correctly, in line with our intuitions about addition. So if your brain can't encode a definition with that level of complexity, right, it could only settle finitely many cases in whatever its dispositions encoded, then it's going to need to be that the brain is referring to something outside of itself that settles it, rather than that the brain is encoding within itself.
The definition of addition is finally encoded. It's not infinitely complex definition
Well, no, it's
that
just,
you cannot
I mean, even if you go look at it in a computer, so a computer doesn't encode addition to infinite precision, right? It's going to break down. If you try to have a computer simulate addition, so any computer be a calculator and simulate addition, there's going to be some number, arbitrarily large finite number that you're going to reach, where the computer is not going to actually encode the intuitively correct answer. That's true for any human computer.
Because that's a computer. A computer is not doing abstract addition. It is just encoding it in floating point numbers that, yes, have a certain amount of decimal points.
Yeah, and so the point is
Abstract addition.
that if you think of the human mind,
Axioms, we are encoding an infinite number of additions.
no, but the point is that you don't get to invoke the piano axioms, because the point is, how are they encoded by a computational substrate that's physically implemented, right?
What's that? You can encode it in a few lines of code. What are you
No,
talking
you
about?
can't.
Yes, you can.
Okay, bro.
No, you literally can't.
Literally, a fucking...
No. And this is a well-known.
You have it. You have
No,
it
you
on a
don't.
piece of
You don't
paper.
Maybe
understand.
you can't do it.
You can write the
That's the
words.
first year computer science major. He'll do it.
No. You can't, because the problem is you can write the words, but anytime you actually try to use the successor function, right? Again, as we established, in the computer itself, it will only define the successor function validly over a finite domain.
But
So if
you
you
just
actually tried to have this computer
conflicting the two things.
yes, of course you're only working with the finite domain.
You are encoding it on a finite number of rules, right? That is totally given. That's a fact. What you're claiming is that you cannot add forever. And that's not the point. Of course, there is infinitely many numbers, so there you can gonna find a number that the computer cannot add because it's just too
Yeah, but
big.
you guys just don't
Those are
understand
two
the
different
argument.
things. You can't
Those
apply
are
the
two different
successor
things.
function infinitely.
No, but you're not
That's obvious.
understanding
Infinitely
the
many times.
argument.
You don't have an infinite amount of memory. That's obvious. But
But you're not understanding.
the piano axioms and the successor function is a few lines. It's like
No, but you don't understand the actual definition. So if we actually go to lean and we give a definition with where we're trying to define the successor function, right? We're going to have to use as a primitive. We're going to have to use as a primitive basically something that's only defined to accurately correspond to our intuitions up to a finite domain, even though our actual concept has an infinite domain and would have to be validly defined over that entire domain.
okay, fine. And this is still computers. Yes, computers only have a finite amount of memory. This is not humans. Humans, yes, we can't do a finite number of steps, but have you ever heard of mathematical induction? I don't know what you're saying. Yeah,
No one's denying.
they're not the abstract.
No one's denying. So this is what the problem is when you jump into a conversation when you don't know the context for the conversation and you're not equipped to have the conversation. So the problem is
It's just an ad hominem attack. It's not.
you just don't know the context for the conversation. No one's denying that humans can do addition.
And computers can do it too. And computers can encode piano arithmetic.
They can't encode it except insofar. No, they can't encode it except insofar. Can you please allow me to finish speaking?
You're wrong.
No. Can you please just allow me to finish speaking?
Yeah, please, you gotta chill. One at a time, everybody.
They can encode it only insofar as the human takes a symbol and then ascribes to it a meaning, right? So the human is imposing the meaning upon the symbol. And so if the person then says, I agree, every time the computer prints this output, I'm going to interpret this as corresponding to my concept of, say, the successor function. So I just use this symbol, right? But that presupposes that the meaning of the concept is rooted in the human, and then the human is projecting it onto the syntactic item that the computer has. So an uninterpreted symbol will have no meaning whatsoever. The computer, though, it will be useful in performing certain operations for us because we can impose interpretations upon its symbols that correspond to our concepts. So we can decide to interpret the syntactic items in line with the concepts that we have.
I mean, going back to the original statement, right? You could encode the piano accents in a computer, and you can understand them regardless of not like humans can understand that, and you only need finally many symbols to understand those axioms.
Never had
Your
one
claims
lesson.
about needing infinity and like my concept of plus needs infinite accuracy. It's nonsense. You don't need infinite accuracy to encode what the plus sign means.
No, but you
only
just
need
ignored what I just said.
I've been the worst. I came back to the.
No, but what I just said responds to
Wait. To your original claim,
you can only encode a piano. No, but I just told you why.
Your original claim was that two people couldn't agree on what the plus means or what addition means because you needed infinite number of information to decode.
It's more
what the
decorative
plus
than it is
means, and that
functional.
You're not even
false.
understanding the original claim. So here's the claims that are being made. The claim is, first, you can't encode, an infinite extension for a predicate on a computer. Because the computer only has a finite memory, so you could only define it for a finite domain. Now you can decide that you have a definition that has an infinite extension in your head, and you can take a computer symbol and say, I'm going to pretend that this symbol, when the computer outputs it, corresponds to this concept that has an infinite extension. You're extrinsically imposing a meaning onto the symbol that the computer itself doesn't encode. Right? encoded the actual extension, the infinite extension. So then the claim here is, for humans, right, if what you were trying to say was that the neurons in the brain physically encode up to infinite that have an infinite domain, that would be problematic. So therefore, it makes it to where your concept of addition means what it does can't depend upon the finite memory resources that are available to the brain. So it can't depend on that.
It doesn't. You don't depend. Only because there's infinite many numbers doesn't mean that you need to have infinite amount of memory to define. You don't need to define the sum for every calculation in order to define sum. That's obviously true. I mean, I guess that would be a way you could define functions would be to define for every value where it goes, you just define them by a rule, right? And then you don't need to give explicit equal for every two possible numbers where
Yes,
they're
but
going to be
you
equal
have to define.
it.
So when you invoke the plus symbol or the successor symbol, what makes it the case that the successor of 42 is 43 and not 45, right? The meaning of that successor symbol.
The definition of 43.
No, but the
The
successor
definition
symbol.
of 43 is the successor of 42.
No, but that's the problem is that when you actually define.
You're saying something you don't know about. You're telling me that
How do you think of
43 is the successor of 42.
No, but the point is, that's my point. That's what you're not getting. That's my point.
To have infinite precision and like that's how the calculator works.
A calculator doesn't work. A calculator will break down once you go past a certain finite
break down too if you try to
That's my argument.
complex numbers.
That's my argument.
That's irrelevant.
No, it's not, because that's my whole thing.
The brain can't do an infinite number of calculations. No
So
shit.
therefore,
Finding it,
what
like,
makes it the case for some arbitrary finite number that the correct answer is what it is, can't be that the brain is disposed to arrive at that answer.
You don't know mathematics. It's axiomatic.
So now,
No, but that's
yeah,
my
but
point.
one second, Ethan. CM, now that you're caught up in the conversation, we were here like 10 minutes ago before you joined. Let's let him continue the conversation with Sam. You guys jumped in at a point and started contending some other thing that he wasn't claiming. Now you're back to he was from the beginning. So just listen a little bit more before you jump into conversations. It's not really constructive. We wasted the last 10 minutes. Maybe we can let him and Sam. He didn't say anything wrong. You just weren't listening. You just reached the point now. You reached the point now that he was at 10 minutes ago. You reached the point now. You reached the point now that he was at 10 minutes ago. So if you guys could mute up for a second, we can hear we can hear the rest of the context of this. We can actually hear the rest of the conversation and see what was being discussed.
I don't understand how logic works.
Never had one lesson.
Point of moderation. Everyone, please vote on the poll so that we get some idea as to what the common for the lay folk are getting out of this. So please vote. Go ahead. Who's next?
I just want to say the context of the conversation was we're debating what propositions were, and I was kind of giving this idea of like you have world states and you have like representations of the world, like maps and territory, and then anything else besides there being maps and territory is adding epicycles that you don't need. And Ethan was trying to say, no, we maybe do need it, but there's something in common about the representations. And what is they have in common? And I was saying the algorithm that generates that it's the same representation would be similar, something like that. Because that has problems. So that's kind of where we were in the
Where we were exactly was I was walking through something called the rule following paradox, which is basically just the idea that what makes it the case that a certain thought, right, that encodes a rule, what makes it the case that one rule determines whether the thought is successful or not
one
versus
listen!
rule that's very similar, except slightly deviant from the rule that is intuitively acceptable, it can't actually be the intrinsic properties of the mental states encoding the dispositions to give the right answer, because you don't have enough precision with the finite resources that you have available to encode that. So therefore, there needs to be some kind of external reference to a standard rather than...
Can it just be that both plus and plus are like it's undetermined which concept we have in our mind, and that like they're both encoded by the rules that we have? Is that?
Well, I mean, first is there are more problems that are going to arise if you take that route. But first, let's just acknowledge how counterintuitive that is. Like, one thing that seems very true is that for my addition concept, that there's a uniquely correct answer to what the sum is for each combination of, two integers, right?
Your addition concept is not axiomatic or well-defined. This is why it's nonsense.
Okay, can you please stop interjecting? You just have no mathematical literacy at all, so can we just move on?
I don't. Okay. The joke is so you're saying that you can add two numbers and get two different results.
I'm saying the opposite of that. It's just crazy that, like, Dunning-Kruger in the room is unbelievable.
By what you're saying, calculators shouldn't work. What mathematicians are doing is literal nonsense.
Yeah, CM, you gotta stop, buddy. It's really getting annoying now.
Nobody's fucking talking to you, bro. You're a fucking moron. You're literally brain dead. Nobody's talking to you. Fucking, this guy, again, I don't think, have you taken computer science class? Seriously?
Yes.
You know what axioms are?
Yes.
Okay, so then what's the problem?
The question we have is not whether axioms exist. It's a question about what makes it to where the axioms mean what they do. So it's a metaphysical question that we're asking. And it's not a question...
They're well-defined. They have to be...
No. But meaning, right? The meaning that they have, when we appeal to it, it bottoms out somewhere we're invoking a primitive, right? So for instance, if you've ever gone to a logic class, if you go to the logic class and they give you the disjunction symbol and they're telling you the semantics for disjunction, there's going to come a point in time where they're either going to assert that it's primitive or they're going to give you a circular definition, right? Because then that's true for all axioms. As you bottom out somewhere where there's some primitive concept that you're employing where you can't give a further definition in terms of something more basic than it, right? Then there comes up a question, which is...
Axiom. Stop. They're trying to go now deep.
Yeah, but Ethan, do you have a calculator? Does your calculator work? Come on, man. Just tell me if your calculator works. Shut up, CM. You're not even following the conversation. Nobody is questioning whether calculators.
They're not following the conversation. The fact that calculators work. Again, do you know like the P versus NP problem? There are NP complex problems that can be solved in polynomial time. Meaning
that's completely irrelevant.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
He just wanted to say the word polynomial so he could sound smart.
No, so what you're talking about right now is computational complexity.
That's what I'm talking about.
So the asymptotic complexity of decision problems has nothing to do with this conversation.
These are just basic problems. Think of Sudoku puzzles. The whole point is basically the n by n grid of the Sudoku puzzle can get really.
Okay, do you know what a decision problem is?
But it's fast. If it's hard to solve.
Do you know?
Sure. If you solve an n by n,
do you know?
That might take a long time.
Do you know what a decision problem is?
The solution is fast.
Do you know what a decision problem is?
Polynomial time.
Do you know what a decision problem is?
You know what I just said.
Do you know what a decision problem is?
Yes.
What is it?
I mean, a decision problem. The fuck are you talking about? Like,
yeah, just give me the answer to the
traveling salesman or fucking.
No, like a definition, not an example.
Regardless, that's not what this is about.
Okay, so yeah, it's part of the definition of P equals NP.
P versus NP is about, again,
the decision problem is just a decision problem is a problem. Yeah, the point is a decision problem is a computational problem with a yes/no answer. So if you look at it, validation, verification, right, for non-deterministic polynomial time corresponds to the decision problem, right?
Sorry, again, say that again?
So verifying whether you have a solution, is a decision problem, right? It's just a problem with a yes/no answer. Either yes, you have a solution, no, you don't.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
You can't just
does not
right, but you just dismissed my reference. Okay.
Well, it sounded like Nito, like you're saying that you cannot define the plus correctly. Like you cannot have a precise definition of plus. So, is that your claim that we cannot define what plus means?
No, my claim is not that we can't define it. I'm saying there's a certain way that we can't define it, which doesn't mean it can't be defined at all.
Yeah, I invited them all to the John Carroll Christmas downstairs.
Okay, so plus could be well defined, so that all of the people who understand the definition agree and understand the same definition. Right?
Yes, that's my point.
Well, it sounded that you were claiming that there was like a quasi plus that you don't know which one I'm actually thinking. Like you can never know.
Right. My claim is that what makes it true, and my thought is about plus rather than quas, isn't about the intrinsic properties of my thought, but is instead about some plus concept that's extrinsic to my mind, that my mind is referring to. And that concept, it's the fact that I'm referring to that plus rather than quas. It's the fact that I'm referring to plus that makes it to where the success conditions for my thought are what they are, rather than that I have certain dispositions encoded in my mind. So I was giving Sam a motivation for thinking that the meaning of these concepts wasn't something in my head, but was instead something that was a relation between the thought in my head and something outside of my head. So it's an argument for a Platonism. That's what I was giving a motivation for.
Yeah, don't we have?
Aldous Huxley
Like,
salad.
like when I say I'm gonna go out the door, like I might be referring to the object of the door with the on the hinges, or like the space that the door takes up, or I could be talking about like I don't know, like a couple feet. Like it seems kind of ambiguous when I say door. I could mean a few different things, and this happens all the time with polysemy, and just our language is like this. So if that's how it works for door, why can't it work that way for arithmetic? Is there something like really?
It doesn't work for door either.
Do you not think that when I say like I'm going to leave?
Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve and mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and will of love as he will, when, where and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who would what these right to slaves shall serve. Love is the law, love under will.
Ethan word salad of precision. This is my Ethan word salad room.
It shall be the whole of the law. Master Therion, Freya Perderabo, Alistair Crowley, the Master Alistair Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and will of love as he will, when, where, and with whom he will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights, slaves shall serve. Love is the law, love and the will. The law of the strong, this is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that and no other shall say nay. Amen and amen is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man. Master Therion, Freya Perderabo, Alistair Crowley, the Master Alistair Crowley. Man has the right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to play as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and will of love as you will, when, where, and with whom ye will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights, slaves shall serve. Love is the law, love and the will. The law of the strong, this is our law and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will. Do that and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man. Master Therion, Freya Perderabo, Alistair Crowley, the Master Alistair Crowley. slave shall serve. Love is the law, love under will. The law of the strong, this is our law, and the joy of the world. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Thou hast no right but to do thy will, do that, and no other shall say nay. Every man and every woman is a star. There is no God but man. The rights of man. Master Therian, Freda Perturabo, Alistair Crowley, Alistair Crowley, the master, Alistair Crowley. Man has a right to live by his own law, to live in the way that he wills to do, to work as he will, to pay as he will, to rest as he will, to die when and how he will. Man has the right to eat what he will, to drink what he will, to dwell where he will, to move as he will on the face of the earth. Man has the right to think what he will, to speak what he will, to write what he will, to draw, paint, carve, etch, mold, build as he will, to dress as he will. Man has the right to love as he will, take your fill and will of love as you will, when, where, and with whom you will. Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. The slave shall serve, love is the law, love under will. Time drips slow like honey. In the dark, it starts.